Okay, thank you very much for the introduction. Thank you to the organizers for the opportunity to join the conference and to also provide some moderation of this session this afternoon on impact of aquaculture and environment and natural resources. And thank you for the invitation also to give a initial presentation on this session as well. And I will talk on nature-based climate solutions to kick the session off. So happy to be here, and also with my other moderators to run this session. I think people are gradually, sort of slowly coming in, but rather than wait for everyone to come and sit down, we'll kick off my presentation. I'm happy to have two, and thank you very much in advance for the fellow moderators for this session. Okay, so just a quick question. Is it going to come up on the computer as well? All right. Okay. Fantastic. Okay. Click here. Would that this one also work? All right. So my kickoff presentation is about nature-based solutions in aquaculture and food system transformation. And this will contain a number of elements that I hope are useful to introduce this topic, but also stimulate broader ideas for discussion on this and possibly broader topics. Okay, so here we go. Right, it's working. So I have about 20 slides. Try to keep within the time, but I couldn't resist giving a little bit of background on to sort of kick it off and where I and also FUTUREFISH is coming from. After many years of working in the R&D space and institutions, most recently, many of you will know, in Willfish, and then moving back here to Thailand, we set up with my partner, Rohana Subasinghe, who you heard earlier, FUTUREFISH. And the idea of FUTUREFISH was not to continue the R&D work that we'd been doing for many years, but to think more about how all that R&D work, networking, partnerships could be more focused on impact. And the vision was that we would look at ways of working more with the private sector, with business, with entrepreneurs to try and bridge this huge gap between the R&D side, the research side, and impact, and find ways to put some of this amazing knowledge, amazing technologies into the real world, into farmers at scale, and create impact. So that was the sort of vision, and we're still on that journey as to how that will happen in practice. But we're very open to working with partners across that spectrum, from the R&D community to entrepreneurship, startup, business community, to see how we can create greater impact together. We also wanted to emphasize that if we look at the aquaculture system, and this is a bit of a theoretical diagram in terms of the system being, in terms of number of farms, businesses, is a bit like a pyramid. So there's some very large companies, businesses at the top, and at the base of that pyramid, there's still millions and millions, particularly in Asia, of smallholders, small and medium enterprises that relative to the access that businesses have at the top of the pyramid have much more limited access to technology, innovation, services, finances, etc. So we want to focus our work on that part of the pyramid. And we wanted to look at how, after many years of sort of grant funding, smallholder projects, subsidies, how can we bring partners from business into the collaboration to really create impact at this bottom part of the pyramid. So that's a bit about where we're coming from as a company, and very open for dialogue and working together to really create much more impact from some of the amazing research that's going on. So I'm going to talk now a little bit more about nature-based solutions and food systems, but just starting off with food systems. And the food system, the system of food production through to consumption was received significant attention in 2021 at the UN Food System Summit. And that really brought together a lot of, partners, collaborators, thinkers, and policymakers to raise the profile of what's the status of our food system at present, and what is the impact of those food systems as they are on people and our planet, and how can we move to more sustainable and healthy food systems. And so this was a landmark event in really raising the profile of, actually, we need to look at transformation, improvement of our food systems, our agri-food systems. It was also important for the community that was working in aquaculture and fisheries, all of us, because for the first time, in many ways, it raised at a very high level the role of sustainable fisheries, aquaculture, coastal and marine systems, inland systems and oceans in the food systems transformation story. So it started to recognize that, and we've spent many years working in our sector, working on fish, working on shrimp. But this summit really, to me, brought home the message that we need to work much more outside of our sector. We're part of a bigger food system. So food systems bring thinking, food systems transformation is an important, broader context for us all to be working. And in aquaculture, we have an important role, and we should recognize that we have an important role in terms of the overall goal, global goals to improve our food systems. So there, the Food Systems Summit is one of this has helped set a number of agendas moving forward. It helped identify the role that aquatic foods play in sustainable diets, healthy diets, an important role in nutrition of people, both in rich and less rich parts of the world. Fish plays a critically important, fish and other aquatic foods play a critically important role in healthy diets. And it started to push, drive this interest in transformation not just of broad food systems, but what do we need to do within aquaculture, what do we need to do in aquaculture and fisheries to transform, be more sustainable, contribute more to healthy and nutritious diets, and do our piece as part of a overall improvement of the planet's food systems. And so these top two on the left, the first, this Blue Transformation Initiative of FAO, and then the aquaculture transformation in Asia Pacific, which was a joint effort of FAO and NACA here in the region, focus on what can we do in Asia Pacific to improve aquaculture, transform aquaculture into a system of production and consumption that contributes to these broad goals. We can see, obviously, I think we've heard already, I'm sure yesterday and today, you see, whilst there are many positives of aquaculture within the food system, there are also challenges that need attention. Climate, we've heard a lot about. Environment and biodiversity is another area clearly of major stress. Health and welfare received attention. We haven't talked that much on equity and livelihoods, but this is the pyramid type thinking, making sure that what we do with our partners, the way we ultimately seek to have impact in the world, delivers to people that are marginalized, communities that are marginalized from the system. So that's both an opportunity but a challenge. So these are some of the broad perspectives of challenges that we see that can be switched around in many ways to opportunities. We're also working in a world where what we do in the food system is also subject to acceptance by society at large. Consumers, how they perceive food, and of course, and many of you will know the challenges that many farmers, aquaculture farmers in Thailand and more broadly in the region are facing, particularly at this time of just making a good living through profitable business. And we should not underestimate or unrecognize the importance of ensuring, as this focus on all these other dimensions comes into the picture, ultimately the farmer has to be making a profit, has to be making a livelihood from the farming system that they're working with. This was really to emphasize a couple of points, and there are many pluses that we can pull out, that aquaculture in the food system has a lot of benefits. In marine waters, we're working with systems that don't need fresh water. Fresh water is under stress, so in many places. So in marine water, making food from a resource that is actually very plentiful. Aquaculture production can produce food with less land than other forms of livestock production. So in terms of protein, it's a very efficient user of land. And as land is pressured, as pressure comes to return some of that land to nature, to biodiversity, for broader societal benefits, then we see aquaculture actually can be a very efficient user of that land. We know also in terms of contribution to greenhouse gas emissions, it can also be, and there's a lot of diversity within the system, but it can also be a very efficient producer of protein. There are quite a lot of publications, demonstrating this. So we've got a story, a good story. Aquaculture has a good story in terms of the potential environmental and ecosystem benefit to the food system to work with, to develop. But clearly, there are things and improvements that can be made. I want to just come back to the work that was done in Asia Pacific through FAO and NACA, which developed, and some of you were involved in this, some of you have probably never heard of it, but developed this vision to 2030 and an aquaculture transformation agenda. And 5 goals in terms of securing food and nutrition security, addressing poverty, better stewardship, use, management of environment and ecosystems, improving resilience, and we've heard a number of ways in which farmers are able to adapt to the changes in the climate and other global drivers, and then more inclusive, being more inclusive moving forward. So this has become a useful, and online you can see this aquaculture transformation document, but it's a useful framework which I think helps guide the areas that need attention into the future. And the aquaculture transformation, so-called white paper, also is quite useful because it set out a number of indicators and targets. Obviously, the sector needs to grow. It needs to produce more food. It needs to reduce its environmental impact. So there were some targets here on reducing the use of marine fish in diets, increasing certification and improvement of programs for farms in the region, increasing consumption, helping countries to stimulate more innovation and investment and draw more investment into aquaculture transformation, and stimulating more partnerships and cooperation. That's a little bit what I was saying at the beginning. We need more cooperation. We need partnerships across the system to be working together to improve aquaculture. And it also recognizes, again, we should not think of aquaculture and some of the intensification drivers as business as usual. We cannot have put more land into aquaculture. We have to make better use of the resources that we have. So we need to step out of business as usual and think in transformative, think and support areas of innovation and investment in areas of innovation in ways that create impact. So come to nature-based solutions. Nature-based solutions is a sort of subset of that broader transformation, aquaculture transformation agenda. They're defined through in a number of sort of semi-official international publications, but broadly actions that protect, conserve, sustainably manage, restore, and modify. So there's a very broad spectrum of activities there related to aquatic ecosystems, whilst balancing the need for production of aquatic species, supporting food security and livelihood. And what's important also is that these solutions need to provide benefits for people, climate, and ecosystems. So broader, there need to be benefits flowing. And this is a bit of the challenge of working in an area where we want to have very positive outcomes in terms of the ecosystems, the environment, biodiversity, whilst ensuring that there are benefits for people that are dependent directly or indirectly on those ecosystems. So there's a balance and a challenge to find win-win solutions, but I believe those win-win solutions are eminently possible. In collaboration, again with NACA and partly supported through Canadian Aqua Adapt project, FUTUREFISH is working towards a set of criteria in which we can assess innovation, assess investments in aquaculture in Southeast Asia and the Pacific against nature-based solution criteria. And the intent is to explore to what extent aquaculture activities can contribute, align with nature-based solutions, and then to draw investment, draw support into those areas of greatest promise. If we look across the region, of course, there's tremendous diversity of opportunities across a diversity of systems which can contribute in various ways to that spectrum of nature-based solutions. Some actions may be just to minimize impacts, other actions may be to neutralize impacts, other actions can be more positive in terms of creating new habitats, new ecosystems, new biodiversity opportunities. So the challenge is really to find and support those practices that are likely to deliver most positive outcomes. I want to talk a little bit about innovation as part of that process of finding and supporting new nature-based solutions. So aquaculture innovation, combined with many traditional practices, will play a key role. Examples of new areas, and I expect many of you maybe think I'm going to talk about rice fish systems or something. I'm not going to talk about rice fish systems. I'm going to talk about some of the new innovations that can contribute new solutions that are nature-based. So digital and data providing multiple opportunities for improving efficiency, understanding values of natural resources, and managing landscapes and farms in ways that reduce negative impacts and enhance positive impacts. If we look at other areas of innovation, feeds is a tremendous impact on our natural environment, but there are many opportunities for innovation, both in terms of technology, ingredients, that recycle in a circular way, that can significantly reduce the footprint of aquaculture feed on the environment and ecosystems. Disease is another important area, and that diversity of production systems, all ripe with opportunity for more innovation, delivering more positive ecosystem and environmental outcomes. And innovation in itself is a fascinating area to dig deeper. If we look more broadly at the development status of countries versus innovation scores, we find a very strong correlation between innovation and GDP. You will find that in countries that are more active in innovation in aquaculture, generally a more positive outcome in terms of resilience and development of those industries. But we have conducted last year some analysis of innovative startups, and we took 60 companies fairly randomly across the region in different areas. And there is a huge difference across the region in where innovative, new startup companies are coming from. We can see from this that there's a lot of opportunity to grow innovative companies in countries that are not yet significant players. So I'm running down to the end of this. So as we think about, okay, nature-based solutions, we think about, actually we need to promote more innovation and investment in innovation. At the same time, we need to create a better environment for that to happen. So we're very pleased also that in Thailand, there is that growing network and system for innovation. We're even more pleased that from the work of NACA and partners, that this new aquaculture innovation and investment hub is starting to take off in Thailand. And the purpose is from Thailand through a hub hosted by NACA, that there will be a very strong and stronger platform for collaboration in innovation and investment from here to the region. Finally, many of us struggle, and I can sense this also this morning, with limitations in data and evidence of aquaculture systems, where they are, current status, what are the opportunities to improve. I think this is from Wembo, who analyzed just the basics of yield across the region. This is some work in Thailand of tilapia systems across a couple of provinces. Huge differences. But huge differences provide, and data provide those insights to make better decisions. And I would like to emphasize the importance of bringing better data, using those insights to develop solutions, whether we're in the nature-based solutions area or more broadly in aquaculture. And I'm going to skip that to the summary slide. So my talk was about nature-based solutions, but that sits within a broader context of aquaculture system transformation that we all need to be driving forward with. I believe we need the insights, data, ability to assess and support innovations and investments. And for nature-based solutions work, we're very much focusing on environmental outcomes from those innovations. I believe we need to focus on those areas in the region which are more marginalized, where in many cases we think difficult, in other perspectives, actually tremendous opportunities for improvement. We need to also focus on partnerships and bring people together to work around that innovation and investment space. Work closely with business, work closely with entrepreneurs that have the drive, ability to move R&D into practice, and again, more neglected markets. From our perspective, a business approach, an entrepreneurship approach that goes beyond R&D projects is really important for sustainability. And that means moving out of our traditional space, working with investors, finance, entrepreneurs, to see how we can create opportunities that go beyond the traditional grants to solutions, nature-based or other, for impact at scale. With that, I'll stop and I'll moderate myself to finish just about on time. So thank you very much. Appreciate the opportunity. And now I have to moderate for the second speaker.
Maybe if there's any questions for you from the floor.
Oh, okay. Thank you for moderating the moderator, Andy. Okay.
That's okay. Do we have any questions for Mike? If not, there's some very nice comments coming in online, actually. First of all, to say a couple of people listening and really liked the presentation and said it was amazing. And one particular comment that was raised was, does the nature-based solutions approach for aquaculture have any downsides that we should be aware of? Obviously, you've painted lots of positives, but are there any downsides that they should be aware of? Are there contexts or scenarios where it may not be appropriate?
I'm sure there are, and in some cases there will be some cost to transition. But in others, it may be building very much on traditional areas. It may be also, and it should be, focusing on innovations that bring broadly nature-positive environmental or ecosystem outcomes. I think you can look at it at different scales, from the broad global landscape, where actually if we invest in aquaculture, we reduce the footprint of protein production. At more local levels, then it will depend very much on the context where the farm is, the socio-economic conditions, and ecosystem conditions related to that farm. But thank you for that question. Okay. All right, thanks. So with that, Dr. Oshani? Online. All right.
So Dr. Oshani Perera from the Shamba Centre in Switzerland, she's joining, she's got a virtual presentation. I believe she's just waiting in the room, ready to join. And she's going to be talking on policies that make way for extensive approaches. So, thanks, Dr. Oshani, if you're listening in, we're just connecting you.
All right. Okay, so bear with us with a little bit of the tech.
We have to switch from one system to the second system. That's why we're just switching over.
Hello. Hello. Can you hear me? Hello.
Hello. Please feel free to start your presentation when convenient.
Lovely. I'll start straight away. Good afternoon, everyone. Fantastic to have this opportunity to speak to you. I shall take a policy view on sustainable aquaculture, and I shall try to cast it in the light of the questions posed by Dr. Francis Murray and Dr. Flavio Coffin in email chat. So the planetary boundaries of of feeding the whole world, farming fish, the sustainability of it all, and then the role of small producers and the role of technology. Sharing my screen now. Can you all see my screen? Can everybody? But I don't seem to be able to move the slides, or can I? Yes. So I can move the slides. So talking about policies that are nature integrated approaches in food production. And I shall tell you a little story from the European Union. So 10 years ago, in the early 2020s, the European Union came forward with an ambitious and systemically integrated group of policies with a goal to achieve net zero by 2050. Interim goals were placed for 2030. And why this was or could be transformative is because for one of the very first times since the Marshall Plan after the Second World War, we saw a group of policies that were integrated under one implementation umbrella. There were vastly different policies, as you can see on the screen, but the implementation was tied to a single growth strategy, and I stress growth. And that is growth towards 2050, Europe being a single market bloc and a single continent that will be achieving net zero. Now, under this group of policies, we had a very controversial and contentious common agricultural policy. And this is the overview of what we call here as CAP, Common Agricultural Policy. Now, this was controversial because Europe was in a state of transformation then, which focused on two main axes. One was for food security, and the second one was allowing for rural development. So the countryside and rural areas would have industry and livelihoods and professional trajectories that were all destroyed after the Second World War. Today in Europe, we have the third phase of the EU Common Agricultural Policy. And here is what we see: movements that are exciting. The most exciting one, in my opinion, is the second point on the screen. The fact that 25% of agriculture subsidies are going to be directed to the delivery of ecosystem services. So 25% of the subsidies being received by food producers in Europe, farmers and fishers, can be linked to the delivery of ecosystem services. Farmers can sign up for it. Particularly interesting is that the subsidy promotes practices like agroecology, carbon farming, organic farming, animal welfare improvement, and more. Now we can sit and debate on what is agroecology and what is carbon farming, but if you put those aside, the designs and the outcomes are what is being targeted. And 40% of the Common Agriculture Policy budget is dedicated to climate and biodiversity indirectly. Now, admittedly, with the new government of the European Union and the new Commission under the President Ursula von der Leyen, we don't know how this is going to play out. We don't know what compromises will be made because those producing these outcomes, the farmers and the fishers, are finding life very difficult currently due to many reasons: the war in Ukraine, the global disruption of food supply chains, inflation, climate change, and more. Zooming down and zooming down into aquaculture, supporting the Common Agriculture Policy is the guideline on sustainable and competitive aquaculture. And I have, excuse me, I have copied for you the key provisions that pique our interest. Now, the guideline, indeed, is not legally binding. It can, however, and it is being, however, used to speed up implementation. And the guideline will be dictating future policies of the EU when it comes to aquaculture. Interestingly enough, the overall goal is tied to decarbonizing the EU economy. That's the whole value chain of aquaculture. And that certain forms of aquaculture, mollusk farming in ponds and wetlands, mangrove integrated aquaculture, extensive approaches of aquaculture that offer ecosystem services are being signaled out and promoted. Now, lending power to the Common Agriculture Policy is the new EU nature restoration law that just passed the European Parliament a couple of days ago or weeks ago. This was a highly fought, highly strong, and highly polarized piece of legislation. Folks like me are very, very happy to see it pass through. This suggests that 20% of the European Union's land and sea areas need to be restored by 2030. And all ecosystems that are in need of restoration have to be restored by 2050. This is the direct implementation of the global biodiversity framework that was agreed 2 years ago. It's called the Kunming-Montreal Biodiversity Framework. This is its direct implementation. And lastly, I want to take your attention to a policy in the United Kingdom called biodiversity net gain, because I feel it has a direct story to tell us when determining the boundaries of sustainable aquaculture. And it goes like this. In the United Kingdom, under the Environmental Act, all building developments have to produce a net gain of 10% of biodiversity. This means that if a building or a development takes place on a greenfield site, and I stress on a greenfield site, the developer has to compensate for the biodiversity that is destroyed on the site and produce an additional 10% of biodiversity as a net gain to ensure that the United Kingdom's biodiversity cliff continues on an upward trajectory. So this is a bit more than a simple offset. You're asking developers and investors to restore the biodiversity, offset the destruction being caused, plus increase biodiversity by 10%. This can be done in several ways. Firstly, it can be done on site where the building is taking place. It can be done elsewhere on the developer's own land. It can be done on designated farmlands and coastal areas. And finally, it can be done by the purchase of biodiversity credits. There is a national system for buying and selling biodiversity credits that is coming in place. And this would be the first mandatory market for the trading of ecosystem services and biodiversity credits that we are likely to observe in the coming years. And this is very important for us because I go to the questions posed in the email conversation by Dr. Francis Marr, who asks, within planetary boundaries, how much intensification can take place? Then we have Dr. Jens Karl in the audience, I'm sure, who continues to ask us, what about extensive approaches? Can we feed the world? Can we meet the demand for increasing animal proteins by farming fish extensively? And you have the answers more than I do, being a policy wonk. But while policies are important to provide the market signals to what you are discussing, there are numerous implementation challenges. Some of them are geopolitical, some of them are ideological, and then some of them are very practical. And I'd like to walk you through some of these very practical challenges, because they allude to the next question that Dr. Flavio Corsa asked in the chat, which is, what is the role of technology? Can technology speed up extensive approaches and help implementation, monitoring, and verification? Can they speed up markets for biodiversity and ecosystem services? Because they will provide the all-important revenue stream and revenue diversification that extensive producers need to make their business models viable, financially viable. So when we look in Europe, again, I come back to the Common Agricultural Policy. The day-to-day realities faced by farmers and producers is nasty. There's a lot of formalities and paperwork to access the funding under the EU eco schemes to receive the 25% subsidy for regenerative farming. Then to demonstrate compliance, you have numerous visits from inspectors and another raft of paperwork to fill in. Climate change is playing havoc, as you know. This makes the process of transforming production systems on land and in water towards more sustainable designs all the more risky and all the more expensive, and producers desperately need more assistance in all fronts. And generally, the polarization of the political debate all over the world is making climate change a voting proxy, political proxy, a political issue rather than an existential issue. This makes the conversation around extensive approaches all the more difficult to talk about in political circles. We are seeing the watering down of a lot of the progressive legislation in the EU, not simply because of the formalities and the difficulties due to paperwork and administration, but because the transition towards low carbon is so expensive. This is a real challenge for us. Then the next one is the debate on regenerative approaches, extensive approaches in conservation. The debate asks this question: if you are regenerating and moving towards agroecology and nature integrated aquaculture systems, is that equivalent to conservation? Is that a form of conservation? And if it is, should additional benefits be provided to the producers that are currently only reserved for conservation? Then all the nature restoration law, for example, that asks 30% of the European Union's landscapes to be restored, do they take into account farms and aquaculture facilities that are moving towards more extensive design? And the jury is out. So this is an important question to address the planetary boundaries of aquaculture and move towards extensive aquaculture. The question posed by Dr. Murray. Then there is the business model issue, because our food systems are based on large-scale aggregation. This is why we need monocultures, because they are feeding into the ease of aggregating, storing, transporting, processing, and retailing. Once we have more extensive approaches, we're going to have a diversified yield. That would require a whole change in the way we aggregate and we reduce post-harvest losses. At the beginning, because we're at the beginning of this journey, it's going to be very expensive. Food is a human right. It's the most highly subsidized of all industries, perhaps even more than energy. And there is going to be a lot of social and political pushback as the cost of food rises. Here we have the direct confrontation between food security and the planetary boundaries. And then there would be a trade-off. This is something that Jens, Carl, and I have discussed at some length. What will it do to our export industries for those of us from South and Central and East Asia? What would it do to our export revenues? What would it do to our employment? certain pundits argue that the domestic benefit to food security and the domestic benefit to rural livelihoods and the increase in household income in the most marginalized areas of our countries is worth it. Others would argue that the trade-off on employment and export revenue is not worth it. It depends. What is certain is that climate change and nature loss is getting in the way. So when we look at the current projections on growth and the projections on returns and the valuation of the aquaculture sector globally, we asked if they are adjusted for climate change risks and nature risks and the depletion and the salinization of the oceans. And the answer is that they are not. In the Financial Times a few days ago, there was the headline that for the first time, farmed fish is overtaking wild catch. The Food and Agriculture Organization says it refuses to compromise on food security. How do we deal with these complexities? You are talking a lot, and I wish I was there with you, on the technical complexities, on the design complexities, on the technological complexities. And I would just like to add a layer of complication here on the political, policy, and social complexities that we see emerging around food production and politics. And this is, while I'll tell you the story from the European Union, this story plays out in every economy all around the world. I am Sri Lankan. We are just coming out of a sovereign debt crisis where agriculture was a major driver of this crisis. So this is playing out the world over, and we need all hands, all expertise, all brains on deck to find solutions in the immediate term. And that's what I wanted to discuss with you. Thank you so much for the opportunity to speak to you. It's an honor to be here. I will be very
Are you able? Hi.
Hi.
Thank you very much, Dr. Perera. That was really very excellent and very important perspective. I'm just opening the floor for any questions. There's, I think that the floor here is digesting the very broad picture that you painted and many important implications from that. So thank you. Online, there was one comment saying insightful comment and a food for thought. We have one question here, and please just hold on a minute whilst I get that, and then we'll come back to you.
We have to, yeah. Yeah, I'll keep it very simple. She mentioned about biodiversity credit buying and selling. It's going to come.
Sorry, I can't hear the question.
Yeah, biodiversity credit. Does she know when is it going to be operational, and is it accessible to anyone around the world, or is it only to UK market?
That was a question on biodiversity credit. And when will they be available? Is it only an EU mechanism, or is it something that will be available throughout the world?
Okay, long answer is there are some experts who are working for the UN Convention on Biological Diversity that is working on a framework that can be globally applicable. In the United Kingdom, there is something called the CGIAR Trust. And I think they have the most advanced and the most credible metrics for calculating ecosystem service credits and offsets. I will put that name in the chat. Otherwise, different jurisdictions are developing their own matrices. As you can imagine, or you will know better than me, this is highly contentious and highly difficult to do. There are so many uncertainties and so many parameters. Carbon is the easy one because there's only one measurement that we're measuring. So this is under development, and there are private markets for ecosystem credits. There are private markets in Japan, nascent markets in India, private markets in South Korea, certain parts of Vietnam, Taiwan. There are also private markets in China, directly linked to the regeneration of soil and soil carbon. So it is mushrooming. If you just put it into Google, you have a bewildering array of matrices. Check out the one from the CGIAR Trust.
All right, there's some furious writing going on here. I think there's one more question, and then we'll need to close the session, please.
Thank you, Oshani. Yeah, it's Francis Murray here. You talked about the watering, the politicization of the process and the watering down of existing directives, the C3D, the CS3D, the Corporate Sustainability Due Diligence Directive. Oh, I'm speaking to both. Hold them both. Two members.
One question, you need to put it in directly.
You talked about the watering down of the existing directives, the politicization of the process, and there's the EUDR, and there's a corporate sustainability due diligence. These have been significantly watered down due to lobbying, industry lobbying. Can you say anything about the nature directive that you spoke about? What's the risks here in terms of that legislation actually coming into practice? Has it been implemented? Is there an effective date, or is there still scope further pushing into political water down? Did you hear any of that?
Yeah, that's a... Okay, Oshani, that was quite a long question on nature policies. What we'd like to do is continue with a follow-up on the email, if we may.
Have to communicate, yeah, this one.
All right. Hi again. Dr. Oshani, okay. So we're having some problem with the technology here and getting other questions. We'd like to keep, there's so many points here. There are more hands coming up now with questions. There's clearly a longer debate. So we'd like to keep the line open to have send some of those questions to you. And clearly there's more time that needs to be taken to address the topics that you've raised and debate them within the context of the aquaculture systems that we're probably more familiar working with in this region. So from me and from the audience here, which you can't see, a big thanks for spending the time with us today and some really thought-provoking contributions. We'll definitely be back and in touch and look forward to the opportunity of continuing the conversation. So, big round of applause for the audience here. Probably can't hear so well, and thank you, and have a great
Thank you.
Stay in touch. Thank you. All right.
Thank you. Bye. Have a great discussion. Bye.
Okay, so now thanks everyone for I think bearing with us, but hopefully that was brought a lot, if I can, food for thought to this the environment and ecosystem topic, which, as you can see, is really much broader than probably many of us are thinking of initially. But let's move on, and we're going to struggle again with the technology as we have another online presenter, Quennie Rizaldo, who is going, I think, to connect with us from Myanmar and talk about small fish powder for improved human nutrition in Myanmar. Quennie, can you hear me? Pre-recorded. Okay, great. Click the button then, and away we go. Thanks everyone for your patience.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. I am Queenie. I am from Roeland Wouters. I am based in Yangon, Myanmar. Apologies for not being able to present today. I'm also recording this just to make sure that there will be no power interruption and internet interruption. So I hope you'll be able to get a glimpse of what we are doing here in Myanmar to support local small-scale aquaculture farmers. For my presentation, I will be providing a background which would highlight why we are doing this activity, how we develop the products, and then also our promotion and marketing activities that we conducted in order to sell the products. And I will end a brief note as a conclusion. In Myanmar, people have poor diet diversity, including infants and young children, which has negative nutrition implications. It leads to stunting and wasting among under 5-year-old children and anemia among women of reproductive age. This situation has worsened due to the COVID-19 pandemic, military coup, and the economic crisis, pushing half of the population in poverty. Animal source food is becoming more expensive, which makes people substitute this food, nutritious food, into calorie-dense food which would not meet the requirements, nutrient requirements per day. This will exacerbate the nutrition situation in the coming months and years. So here you will see the map. The country borders India, China, Thailand, and although not indicated in the western part is Bangladesh. The country has vast inland and marine water resources, which explains high fish consumption rate, which is similar to the global average of 21 kilogram per capita per year. Fish provides half of the animal source food in the diets. In our study in the Wadi Delta, there is disparity in consumption by gender and age, where women consume small fish and men are consuming large fish, and children were not provided with small fish, even if it's perceived good for health and nutrition. In addition, according to the recent analysis conducted by our colleagues in World Fish and IFPRI, fish and aquatic food contribute up to 90% to adults' estimated average requirements for calcium, iron, vitamin B12, and vitamin A. This signifies how nutritious aquatic foods is. Aside from that, studies have also shown that when fish is taken in meals, it also increases the absorption of other nutrients. Aside from fish being a superfood, it is affordable and easily available, especially small fish like pelagic and indigenous fish. Although there is a competition on the use of pelagic small fish, since it is widely used for aquaculture production as fish meal instead for direct human consumption. When we conducted a formative research study, we found that fish is introduced late in the diets of young children, which I also mentioned earlier, because mothers and caregivers are afraid that children will choke on fish bones, which is a missed opportunity as fish is highly nutritious. Therefore, World Fish and Partners, Federal Foods and MMKM company, these are local companies, and they are members of the Scaling Up Nutrition Business Network. We found a solution by developing local food products enriched with small fish powder. The innovation was funded by the Institute of Food Technologies, which is a US-based organization, through their Global Food System Challenge, where we won the grand prize winner in 2022. In developing the products, we conducted sensory evaluation to know consumers' preferences on taste, color, smell, and texture. And we found that by adding spices like pepper, vanilla, it adds acceptability. It increases acceptability of the products. In addition, these products that we developed, we had it analyzed, we sent it in Thailand, and also we had sent it for analysis in Myanmar to confirm the nutrient content. And results showed that the products can significantly increase intake of protein and micronutrients. For example, here, as you see in the diagram, that a portion of happy fish noodles, which is 50 grams, can provide at least 80% of protein and at least 40% of calcium for infants 6 to 12 months old. Aside from that, we also conducted online consumer survey among 300 consumers. This was conducted online here in Myanmar. We wanted to know what were the factors that would let the people decide on choosing the products to purchase and eat. So we found from that survey that products need to be doctors recommended, and it needs to be affordable as well in order for the consumers to purchase these products. So when we conducted our promotion and marketing activities, we had to take this into account. And then also for when we are doing the pricing, we had to take this into account that it should supposed to be affordable so low-income consumers can purchase the products. So here you see the range of products that we developed. We had porridge, cookies, chickpea bowls, and noodles, and the prices. Although not included here, we also pack the small fish powder. Small fish powder are added into dishes in order to increase nutrients in the dishes that are made by parents or caregivers. And then by adding those, it's an animal source. It is an animal source food, so the nutrients will be easily absorbed by the body. Here, the products, the main ingredients have small fish powder. We have chickpea powder, moringa, and orange sweet potato. So we added orange sweet potato to make it taste sweeter, because since the fish that we put, or the small fish powder, is whole, so there is a little bit of bitter taste. So it balances the bitterness when we put the orange sweet potato. And for products like chickpea bowls and noodles and porridge, we also added a little bit of pepper to hide the taste of the bitterness. So the products are slightly expensive compared to general food products. So we have to make sure that we conduct promotion marketing activities that would highlight the nutritional importance of these products in order to convince people that this product is what they need. To sell our products, we have to conduct various marketing activities. So we conducted training of sales agent, where our target participants were women and youth. So we have to provide basic nutrition and financial literacy training for the participants. And if they're interested to sell the products, we have provided, and then they are given commission in each pack sold. And currently, our partner, MMKM, has distributed the products to wholesalers in the local market, and the wholesalers are adding markup price, are putting markup price in order for them to sell the products, and so they can earn income as well. Aside from that, other activities we conducted, we created Happy Fish Facebook page. All the messages were posted on agricultural phone applications. We conducted cooking events with MasterChef winners, highlighting the versatility of the small fish powder. It can be added to dishes. And then also we have cookbook, and we have partnered with a social enterprise. We highlighted all the different popular dishes in the different parts of the countries, the different regions and states, because the country is quite diverse. So we have highlighted all those popular dishes to make sure that people will relate to it, and that they can also make use of the dishes that we have highlighted in the cookbook. So in order to, of course, market the products, we have linkage with the Scaling Up Nutrition, Civil Society Alliance, and the Sun Business Network. We found that this is an important platform for us to be engaged. So there are many activities, nutrition and health activities that they have come up with. So we joined, and then also make sure that we are involved in those events. We distributed some of our products so people can taste the products during those events. We also have an ongoing meetings with NGOs working in humanitarian assistance and nutrition projects, so they can also pilot the test the products, for the supplementary feeding activities. So here you can see some of our promotion and marketing activities. We have the launch event, and then we have the sales agent training, which I already mentioned earlier. This sales agent comes from different areas of Yangon, so they would have an increased income when they sell these products. Here you can see some of our activities like nutrition and health events, nutrition month campaigns, and some of our products we also send it to Egypt for the COP27 to showcase what we have done here in Myanmar. So here are some of our promotional marketing activities. Some of our IEC materials that we develop to make our products visible to the local consumers. So we have pamphlets, cookbook. These are all available online. So if you are all curious, you can just check it through the World Fish website. So some of our challenges, I will share that, of course, there's fish has seasonality. So for anchovy, for the main product that we use, it is abundant during October to January, and of course it's much cheaper. But of course we have to, in order for us to have the product, a continuous supply of the ingredients, the company need to purchase in bulk, and also make sure that they have a storage facility that can accommodate the products. So we also experience unstable and rising costs of ingredients in making the products, making it difficult to balance the affordability of these products. Another challenge is that there is limited understanding of the nutritional value of the products. So we need to really make sure to convey the message to target audience in order for them to purchase the products, which leads to the second point. There is a lack of resources of the private company to promote the products widely, so that also becomes a limitation as well. So in conclusion, with the crisis in Myanmar, innovative solutions like Happy Fish products can help address nutrient gaps, especially for young children and pregnant and lactating women. Our prices is slightly higher than others, but since we are packaging it in small quantities, it's still low-income consumers are still able to purchase it. And also by engagement with established network and conducting targeted behavior change communication activity and using experts to promote our products, we can make sure that there will be an increased utilization or increased use of these products. Lastly, with the disruption of supply chain in Myanmar, we know that there is a potential. This is a good alternative to be used as a supplementary food for vulnerable groups in order to prevent malnutrition. And this way we are reducing the reliance on imported products in Myanmar. This also help in building local resilient communities. Thank you, and I hope you will have some questions later on, and I'll be happy to stay on for the question and answer. Thank you, and good afternoon again.
Okay. Thank you, Quennie. We do have we have someone here in Don Griffiths who's involved in the project and may be able to provide some direct response to any questions. Please, Don.
Thanks a lot for the presentation. I would have a question because you mentioned that the prices of ingredients has increased. And you also mentioned beforehand that there is a competition between the small fish species which you use to produce this food and the fish meal production for fish feed. Can you explain this a bit more to understand whether the increased prices is due to increased fish meal prices? Is this concurrence with fish feed a serious issue for you, or what is the exact situation?
Don, are you able to respond to that?
No, I don't think I can actually, because I left this project, or I left Myanmar before this project began. I was involved in the Myanmar Sustainable Aquaculture Program, inland component, which basically piloted work with the small-scale fish powder, which was produced within the inland ponds in combination with polyculture of carp species. And that went very, very well. We did work with nutritionists from Save the Children and doctors who helped us to train the NGO staff and the farmers with which we worked on the benefits of nutrition. And the program showed that the minimum dietary diversity of women and family members increased significantly over the project period. She's saying that since then they've been looking at anchovies, marine anchovies, as a source for their powder production, rather than what we used previously, which was small-scale pond stuff. So I can't comment on the cost of those and the comparison. One of the things about doing it with the small fish from the inland pond is that the women within the family could fish when they liked. We trained them to use small gill nets. They could remove fish at any time they liked, either to sell and make some money for other family items, or to feed directly to members of the family. And it worked very well.
I think the shift to the anchovies is done because of a better nutrient profile. Is that correct? Because I've seen some analyses about profile for nutritional profiles for the species, and usually the saltwater species are actually better compared to the freshwater species.
I think it's partly that, and it's probably the quantities they need to do for commercial venture.
Okay, thanks. Thanks, Don. Are there any further questions? We can pitch it. Don? All right. Okay, well, with that, we're pretty much to come back to time. So let's just one more big round of applause for Quennie. And very, very pleased now to have a live speaker on the stage, and to ask Dr. Roeland Wouters to talk to us about responsible use of raw materials in feeds for marine fish and shrimp. And Dr. Wouters is from INVE Aquaculture in Belgium. Over to you, please. Thank you.
Thank you for the nice introduction and good pronunciation of my last name. Thank you also to the organizers for giving me the opportunity to present this today. So the title of my presentation is Responsible Use of Raw Materials in Feeds for Marine Fish and Shrimp Larviculture. With raw materials, in this presentation I will actually limit myself to feed ingredients. Internally, you also think about that, about packing material, etc. So INVE is servicing the fish and shrimp sector, so the marine fish and shrimp culture, with products for animal health, and then more specifically for the hatchery and nursery stages, also with Artemia cysts and formulated feeds. And so in the aquaculture, in the aquafeed value chain, this positions us quite at a distance from the consumer, who is more and more asking, please be close enough. Yeah, so this positions us a bit far away from the consumer who is asking for more and more for sustainable seafood. But we do feel the pressure since for quite some years in the Mediterranean area, so where our clients are farmers of sea bream and sea bass. But only recently we get the first requests from clients in shrimp culture. So as the farmers are our clients, we conducted a survey among our clients and a few distributors to better understand how they value sustainability. So we had 33 respondents. Most of them were shrimp hatcheries, but also fish hatcheries, and fish and shrimp grow-out farmers are represented. And so the first part of questions are represented here in this figure. So one of the questions was, so do you support the idea of investing in sustainability? Well, 100% was positive, so the answers were simple yes or no answers. Then almost all of them also expected that such investment would then impact their business in a positive way. And 70% of the respondents claimed that they had sustainability policies in place. About half was selling product that was certified by a third-party certification provider, and almost 25% was member of an organization that promoted sustainability, like the Global Aquaculture Alliance. So these quite positive results confirmed that at INVE we took the right decision about 4 years ago to intensify our efforts in the 4 main sustainability programs that we are running. So one of them is the sustainable development of sustainable products. We have then community engagement as a program. Then there is a quite heavy program on reducing the greenhouse gas emissions of our operations. And then there is the sustainable supply chain program. Now the supply chain program is based on 3 pillars. That's local sourcing, that is certification, sustainability certification of the ingredients we use, and green ingredients. So I'll go further in detail on these 3 pillars. So the first one, local sourcing, we think it's important, well, first of all, because it's a way to support the local industry, but also internally, let's say, it helps us reducing operational costs. And then for our program on reducing greenhouse emissions, so the transport from the ingredients from the place to origin to our factory is also, well, an important part of greenhouse gas emissions of our operations. So we are for each ingredient we are doing so we're scoring, let's say, the sustainability of each ingredient on different parameters, like whether it comes from aquaculture or fisheries, whether the ingredient competes with human nutrition, whether it's a byproduct, yes or no, whether there are serious nature conservation issues. And another one is so the theoretical estimation of the carbon dioxide emissions, so carbon dioxide equivalents, which is done based on the volume. Oh, sorry, where is the volume here? I have hidden the figures. So the volume of each ingredient that we buy, the country of origin, so basically the distance from origin to the factory in Thailand, the method of shipping, whether it's by truck or over ocean, so, and then we calculate this, and it's part of overall sustainability scoring that we use then to, let's say, decide whether an ingredient is candidate to be replaced by a better ingredient, yes or no. The second pillar in the supply chain program is to select suppliers that follow certification schemes, sustainability certification schemes. So for marine protein sources, it's typically Marine Trust, Friends of the Sea, then we have the Marine Stewardship Council and the Aquaculture Stewardship Council. So it's, yeah, well, it's important to know that the only part, let's say, can be certified by ASC because it's only about 10% of the global fish meal market, let's say, that is using byproducts from aquaculture. So about 90% uses wild caught fish from fisheries or fish or whole fish or byproducts. And then only of the global fish meal, only about 10% is comes with third-party sustainability certification. Another 20% comes with green rating, where the difference is whether there is audit or not. And then at least for INVE, but obviously also other companies, it's still a problem that there is no industry standard for squid, so that providers would be able to do sustainability certification. Also, plant ingredients can come with certificates, mainly for soy and palm oil. But again, an example for soy, only 5% comes with sustainability certification that is also deforestation free. Oh, making it worse. I think I pushed the wrong button. Sorry for that. There's a problem with live speakers. Right. So, this one away. So at INVE, about 90% of the ingredients that we use, the bulk ingredients, come with either sustainability certification provided by a third-party provider or a sustainability statement from the supplier. So this includes all our marine protein sources except squid, our marine oils, or soy-derived sources, soy-derived ingredients. Also, the Great Salt Lake cysts, Artemia cysts, come with MSC certification. Then the third pillar of the sustainable supply program is actually then replacing the more problematic ingredients with more sustainable ingredients. We refer to them as green ingredients. And then when we look at, for example, marine protein sources, and then more in detail fish meal, in this graph, so the light blue bars give an indication of the global aquaculture production of species that are fed with aquafeeds over 20 years from 2000 to 22. Then green bar is the aquafeed production or volumes in million metric tons, all of it. And then the darker blue bars is so the fish meal used in aquafeeds in absolute figures then in millions, or the percentages is then the inclusion in the aquafeed. So this has to do, well, the limited available amount of fish meal obviously has to do with the limited amount that is available through fisheries, and also the quota that have been set starting mid-90s. So there is a shortage of fish meal, and so aquafeed companies are really forced to reduce the inclusion and then also to find good alternatives. For INVE, that specializes on larval feeds, it will be an extra challenge, also because we work on marine carnivorous species like shrimp, sea bream, sea bass. Larvae is a difficulty because they have already difficult nutritional requirements, but also they go through ontogenetic changes, which are quite dramatic, which come also with different feeding behavior. And then, so you could say that the progress we will make will be much slower than the progress progress that is made by aquafeed companies that work on grow-out feeds. Besides that, okay, also plant ingredients, some of them are candidate to be replaced with more sustainable ingredients, so especially those that are associated with deforestation or reduction in biodiversity. So these green ingredients to replace, for example, again, marine protein sources, they have to comply with certain characteristics. For example, then the high protein content will be important if you want to replace fish meal. Obviously, environmental sustainability is important characteristic. Consumer acceptance also. And then there is technical feasibility, which is probably the most difficult aspect in finding an alternative, a suitable alternative. Technical feasibility means a lot of things. It's about scalability, it's about constant supply of good quality product. Legislation can be a hurdle. And then obviously also it has to have the capacity to replace the marine protein source that you want to replace. And then we're looking at nutrient quality, digestibility, if there is any anti-nutritional factors in that green alternative. And in some cases, for some ingredients, it can be an advantage actually also. Let's say that maybe the replacement capacity is not the same or it's just similar. Can be that certain categories come with an additional benefit, like functional, that you can look at it also as a functional ingredient, maybe stimulating the immune system. So all of this are factors to be taken into account, and then the main categories we look at, like byproducts from fisheries or aquaculture, they fill in a lot of pluses, but there is a remark on the technical feasibility, or maybe not on the technical feasibility, but on the availability, because almost all of it goes to feeds for dogs and cats. Yeah, because they pay better prices, and there is also stricter regulation in the maximum amount of fish meal that these feeds can contain. Then the category of insect meals, that is getting a lot of attention, scores a lot of good points on most of the categories. In terms of upscaling, they are getting there or nearly getting there. The fact that it's nearly also makes that the price is still on the high side, especially if you compare to fish meal, and even more obviously if you would want to replace soy. Legislation, let's say, depends. So insect meal, for example, can be a problem in certain countries where aquafeeds have to be halal certified. So there can be different angles to look at, and it's not always easy to comply with everything before really being able to use that ingredient category. Then you have the single cell protein sources. Bacteria, again, a lot of pluses. The scaling up is maybe also there the biggest problem. I think it's lagging behind a bit on insect meal. There's only few players that now have commercial product available. For the rest, let's say, it looks very, very promising. Then yeast, well, similar story. Microalgae is a different story, mainly because of pricing. The up-concentrating by filtration and centrifugation, the drying step, drying in a way that your nutritional quality is not lost, makes that microalgae powders are still way too expensive to use in aquafeeds. And then microalgae are very interesting also, and technical feasibility is not the biggest problem. But if you're looking at, for example, replacing again the fish meal or some high protein sources, then the fact that it's low in protein is a limitation, obviously. We also looked at the performance of different green ingredients. Our main interest go to microbial protein from fermentation then, and then insect meal. Bacterial protein for fermentation has obvious, let's say, advantages that it uses almost no land, as it's done in fermenters that are also independent of the climate conditions, etc. The first trials we did, in experimental larval feeds in shrimp, gave promising results. We could replace more or less 20% of our marine protein sources without a decrease in performance. And then actually this Sunday we stocked NAPI for a test in bigger scale tanks, so you could say commercial scale facility, to valorize to confirm actually the data that we already have obtained. So this is work in progress. While insect meal, we also have done trials. We have had promising results, but not consistent yet. Apart from that, we're also facing some regulatory issues. So that is something we really are interested in it, but it looks like we'll have to wait a bit to progress with that any further. And I think I can just conclude with that. And thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much. Floor's open for questions. Please.
Hello. I think my question this.
Okay. Oh, please first and then second here. Thank you.
So, my question was, you are paying a lot of attention to your back-end supply to make it more sustainable. Now, how important is this process? Training and building capacities of your suppliers who are there, and whenever you do so, what kind of challenges do you often face?
Yeah. So, well, let's start with saying one thing. So, as we specialize on larval feeds, the volumes of ingredients that we need, let's say, is much lower than those of big aquafeed companies that produce grow-out feed. So, it's a disadvantage and an advantage. The advantage is that when, let's say, a recent ingredient industry is just offering their first commercial products, they don't have much available, and then they can fulfill our needs. And so we are often one of the first to have access to these kinds of ingredients. On the other hand, let's say sometimes it's also looked in another way. It can be that they are not interested because they realize that we will never, sell container loads to us. So it depends a bit. But in general, I cannot really complain about how these new players want to cooperate. Legislation is a big issue for us, especially because we also certify non-GMO, non-terrestrial products. So out goes the processed animal protein and then the halal certification. Well, a part of that, it's still pricing that is a big concern. And then if we want to include these ingredients in our existing feeds, we have to guarantee that the performance is the same. And that takes a lot of testing and repeated testing to be sure that the quality of our feed is not compromised. So sometimes it's easier, let's say, to think about new developments, new product development, than trying to make your existing products more sustainable, but you have to do it anyhow.
Okay, thank you. We had the second question.
Thanks a lot. My question is pointing into the direction of fermentation. You mentioned that you use fermentation to produce single-cell protein in fermenters. Do you see also an opportunity to ferment plant ingredients in order to increase digestibility, reduce anti-nutritional factors, and stuff like this?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, first a correction. I mean, we are not fermenting ingredients, so we look at suppliers that, or we try to find suppliers that can offer fermented ingredients. So, okay, with a focus on bacterial and yeast biomass. But indeed, yeah, plant ingredients, and actually already have tested a few of them. When they are fermented, they can come with additional benefits, apart from indeed the reduction in anti-nutritional factors, as is often known, and you could say the better digestibility. You could even talk about like a bit of pre-digested ingredients, but often also the bacteria associated with it bring additional advantages. Can be palatability, it can be immune stimulation, it can be some kind of probiotic or prebiotic effect. So yeah, for sure, this is a very interesting evolution. The fermentation of plant ingredients will open a lot of opportunities.
Thanks a lot.
Okay, thank you for that. Ed? I have one question.
Yeah, just a follow-up question from this fermentation. I know that microbial proteins has a great potential, but considering the mass production of these microbes, the cost, the media, will it affect the total cost of the feeds that is produced from this microbial protein? So that's the first question. My second question is on the insect. I thought it's a big potential when this was first introduced in the aquaculture industry. But what could be the reason why the inconsistencies of results when you incorporate insects as a source of protein for aquaculture feeds?
So about the pricing of these fermented let's say bacterial biomass from fermentation, it is up to the producers of this biomass that they reduce the pricing, and if they don't meet an affordable price, then we will simply not include them in our feeds. It's just, that's how it works. So that's why I put like a plus minus there. They are not really there yet. They don't have, the price has to reduce further, or for the few that are now getting in the market with commercial product, they will still have to do a lot of upscaling. So yeah, no, I don't think that a lot of aquafeed players will increase the feed cost just because they use this more expensive ingredient. On the contrary. Then, with regards to insect meal, I don't know what was the reason for, let's say, more inconsistent results in our trials. We only did 2. So it's, as I said, now it's a bit on hold, but we will continue doing further research on that. The insects market, you could say, there's also a bit of a hype there. Of course, it's let's say in theory, it's fantastic, especially because you would be able to grow them on waste streams. But in practice, and also because of legislation, for example, European legislation doesn't allow to use substrate originating or having terrestrial animal product in there. So that limits the possibilities. And then you see that so startups and companies that are producing insects, they have to, or they are then actually using pure substrate streams like starch, for example. Also because it's difficult to maintain a constant quality. So they're facing quite a lot of problems still. The other disadvantage of insect meal is that they don't produce new protein. You need protein in your substrate, and then it becomes insect protein. And also, the insect, they are actually accepted as a food ingredient. So you could also question there, are we going to use it now in feed, or should we not optimize, should we not keep it available for human nutrition? So there's a lot of things going on there. I don't know where it will end up, but I think there is a future for it. It's just a matter of time.
Thank you, Roland. Thanks for the questions. I have one more online for you. Will replacing fish meal in aquafeed reduce omega-3 content of fish? If yes, then would we need to eat more fish to achieve our omega-3 requirements?
So there's a yes and a yes, I guess. So if you replace fish meal, depends how much oil or fat there is in that fish meal, but you will have then indeed the challenge to have to find another ingredient that comes with sufficient UFA. So okay, you could use fish oil, but that market is also, that is also under pressure, so that would not be the solution. But there are developments in algal oils, some of them, not few, but not much, but there are some commercial applications and also companies that already use algal oil in their feeds. Comes with a price. Also, it's an emerging market. It's going to be a challenge, indeed, to maintain these levels of UFA.
Okay. All right.
Well, I think also there, yeast or bacterial fermentation could be a solution, especially if you also would allow GMO techniques. There is certainly a way to steer what yeast produces towards a product that is very high in DHA APA.
Okay, thank you for that insightful answer and the response to the other questions, which sort of showing that there's no one easy solution here. There are alternatives, there are challenges and opportunities with different ingredients. But thank you.
Absolutely. And maybe adding to that, all these alternatives, ingredients or categories that I mentioned, they all have pros and cons. So it's finding how to make them ideal, let's say, but it's a matter of time.
Okay, thank you, Roland, very much for the presentation and being there to answer all those questions. Thanks. I think now it's time to close the session. If I may quickly thank all the participants for that session, and I appreciate that a lot. Thank you, please.
I would like to thank all the speakers for such an informative session. As you can see on the display here, this is the evaluation QR. So I would like to request all the participants, the speakers, everyone present here to please scan this for the evaluation of today's sessions. And after you're evaluating, let's all grab a snack during the afternoon break, during which the poster sessions will be on display. So I request all the poster presenters, if you're not already there, please be on standby. And please visit all the posters, have fun. And we shall all meet back here at 4:25 because we'll be starting with the workshop at 4:30. And also another thing, someone left this kawa case near one of the posters, so if it belongs to you, please collect it from me. Thank you so much.